So one thing that has been interesting me about the London Mayoral Elections is that two YouTubers this time round ran for the London mayorship. Well, sort of three, okay? So we'll come back to the main ones, and the one that I've sort of actually watched the videos of. But, I mean, the one that people might have seen more of previously is this guy who is called Brian Rose. Is that it? It's called Brian Rose, who is absolutely amazing. We're not going to talk about him for too long because he's just a bit nuts, and the sort of joke gets old. This man who looks like a sort of villain from something, like just an amazing guy. Okay, someone saying NDL, right? So the other person, so one of the other people was this Niko Omilana, whose thing seems to be, if I go to YouTube, like breaking into stuff. I've seen like one or two of his videos, but I hadn't really seen anything before the mayor chip, and I've not seen his any of his mayor stuff. But he did a video, for example, where he broke into the Brits, I think. So this guy sort of does pranks. That's his thing. I mean, Brian Rose is a whole. There's so much to dig into here. He's like a sort of podcaster. But so Sienna's saying in the chat, wasn't Laurence Fox involved? So I think that's the starting point for the person that I want to talk about, is that, so there is a chap in the UK called Laurence Fox, who, let's start from, so his normal thing before he went a bit nuts, was that he was a sort of Sunday TV kind of actor. So he was in Lewis, which is a spin-off of a program called Inspector Morse. A fine actor, like really nothing special, but
Chrome every time,
there you go. He's not this guy. The other guy could ably just exist in a Sunday afternoon drama and wouldn't be so bad that you'd turn it off. Would just be sort of okay, and that's all that is demanded of him in that task. He then, at some point, went on Question Time. He got divorced first. I think that's important. That's probably important to take into account. That he got divorced from Billy Piper, I want to say. Yeah. So in 2016, he got divorced from Billy Piper off of Doctor Who. And then he went into Question Time, and at some point, he went on a whole thing about I'm a straight white guy and I can't say anything anymore. The sort of like standard, I actually want to make a name for myself as a bit of a right-wing grifter. So this like 20 seconds on TV just then sparks a whole thing. He then decides that he's going to become a musician. So he becomes, so he releases a little bit of music, and it's absolutely terrible. Like, I can't explain how awful this is. In fact, he hires someone to sing half of it for him and to constantly sort of do melodies with him because he can't sing. Wait, sorry, let's go back for a little bit.
They have put something in the water. They seek a cure for the conversation. They stole a march on your indecision.
So he releases some music, which is all about, it's all like sort of right-wing protest songs about how you can't make jokes anymore. Eventually, he... Sienna's saying his main policy is winning Billy Piper back. It is strong divorced energy to the whole thing. So he does that, and that flops because the music's absolutely terrible. He then decides he's going to run for London Mayor. Well, I think he launched a political party first, which was called the Reclaim Party, I think, first. His main thing being sort of COVID denialism. Like, that's the whole thing. And lockdowns are bad, etc. Sort of just going for that sort of I don't know, just trying to get attention. Just trying to get attention. So that's sort of the backstory to the guy that I wanted to talk about, who was... So there's this guy called Max Fosh. And I don't want to take the piss too much, because this guy's like 23, maybe. He's a child. Oh, sorry, I've not got that up. And he is sort of the other YouTuber that decided... I'm going to turn the music off, I'm afraid. Sort of the other YouTuber that decided to go for it. The London Mayorship. And the whole thing is a little bit... Like, Niko Omilana just has a lot more fans, so just got a lot more votes and was a lot more sort of successful with it. But, so Max Fosh is an incredibly, and I think admits to it in his stuff, incredibly posh guy that went to Harrow. At some point, he decided, they've got episode numbers, so this is good. At some point, he decided he was going to also run for London Mayor, and that his goal was going to be to get more votes than Laurence Fox, because they both went to the same schools. They both went to Harrow, which is, I think, the most expensive school in England. I think it's more expensive than Eton. Harrow costs £14,200 per term, so that's £42,000 for a single year to send your child there. And so he started off with this thing of like, okay, I'm going to run to be London Mayor in order to beat Laurence Fox, who also went to my school. And I was sort of had my interest piqued by this. The race was always going to be relatively safe for Sadiq Khan, who's the Labour mayor of London, who was the mayor before, is the mayor afterwards. So it sort of opened up an opportunity for a lot of, there was a lot of silly candidates as well as just a lot of tiny candidates. It costs 10 grand to run. So in the UK, you have to put down a deposit for to run for any elected position. For the mayoral contest, it's £10,000, and you have to get 5% of the vote to get that 10 grand back. So, he paid the 10 grand to run for it. And sort of implicit in the first video, at least, was the notion that he was doing it for a reason, right? He wanted to beat Laurence Fox. And, the implication there is that he wants to beat Laurence Fox because Laurence Fox is a big old racist and a COVID denier and etc., right? He's building his brand around that kind of right-wing vote. But then as the videos went on, he just sort of didn't add any context to it. Like, he never explained who Laurence Fox was for anyone who was watching it and, wasn't aware of why he was doing it. Never sort of said why Laurence Fox's policies or Laurence Fox's views about the world are bad, and it just sort of became this bants, I'm posh, he's posh, we both went to the same posh school and I'm going to try and beat him. And it just became this really odd sort of politics-less thing. Laurence Fox had his big campaign launch with a bus, and he parked next to it, and it said, don't believe with his car with stickers on it, and the car just said, don't trust everything you see, or something. And it was I suppose it's a minor joke, right? But it's not really saying anything about it's not going, actually, London is a really multicultural city, and we should be happy that this guy is going to lose his deposit. So it was a really odd thing to watch unfold, because there was something really sort of minorly exciting at the beginning there that then just sort of disappeared very quickly, to the point where it was just two guys from Harrow running against each other, which what British politics doesn't need more of is posh guys from posh schools just running against each other for elected office. I'm sure there was enough of that already on the ballot paper before.